Imagine hiking deep into the Appalachian Mountains and realizing the forest isn't just watching you, it's coordinating around you. Tonight's stories aren't about a lone creature crossing a trail. They're about something organized, intelligent, protective, something that knocks in the dark to communicate, and something else that mimics that knock to hunt. As rain falls and the woods grow silent, ask yourself one question. If Bigfoot isn't the monster, what is it? Protecting us from... The forest does not forgive curiosity. That was the last thing the old ranger told us before we crossed the warning sign and stepped beyond. Mile marker 27 into the deepest stretch of the Appalachian forest. The mountains rolled endlessly beneath a fading orange sky, layers of ancient trees swallowing light as evening crept in. Most people knew these woods for their beauty mist rising between blue ridges, deer stepping cautiously through brush. The peaceful isolation hikers crave. But locals spoke of something else, something older than the trails, older than the ranger station, older than the maps. They called it Bigfoot. Some laughed at the name, some whispered it. And if you refuse to say it at all, my name is Ethan Cole. I run a small independent channel dedicated to investigating unsolved mysteries. No fake screams, no staged evidence, just cameras, research, and the truth, whatever that might be. My team was small. Mark, my childhood best friend, fearless to the point of stupidity. And Lena, wildlife photographer whose steady hands and sharp instincts had saved us more than once. 3 weeks before this trip, I received an email. No greeting, no sender name, just one attachment and a single sentence. They are not bears. The photo showed a muddy clearing deep in the Appalachian woods. In the center were footprints, massive, perfectly shaped like human feet, but impossibly large, at least 16 inches long. The stride between them stretched nearly 6 feet. Whatever leapt those prints wasn't walking casually. It was covering ground. In the top corner of the image, barely visible, stood a dark silhouette between 2 trees. Watching, we traced the metadata. Mile marker 27, when we showed the ranger the photograph, he went pale. His name was Harold. He looked like a man who carried too many stories and never shared them. You're not the first to come asking, he said quietly. He told us about hikers who vanished, hunters found miles from where they should have been, buddies discovered, with broken bones but no claw marks, moved, rearranged, as if placed. We should have turned back. Instead, we stepped into the forest. At first, everything felt normal. Wind moved gently through the trees. Birds called overhead. Leaves crunched beneath our boots. But the deeper we walked, the older the forest felt. The trees grew thicker, bark scarred and twisted. Moss clung to everything like something alive. Then, it happened. The silence. It wasn't gradual. It was instant. One moment birds were singing. The next nothing, no wind, no insects, no distant wildlife, just our breathing. Mark stopped walking. That's not natural. Lena adjusted her camera, scanning the tree line. Animals go quiet when there's a predator. A chill crept up my spine. We set up camp in a small clearing before dusk swallowed the last of the light. The air smelled damp and earthy, but beneath it lingered something else. A sour, musky scent that didn't belong. That night, the first knock echoed through the trees. It was hollow, deliberate knock. We froze inside the tent. Knock, Mark whispered. Wood knocking, that's what researchers talk about. Knock. Then. Silence. A response came from the opposite direction. Knock. The sound bounced between trees, like a signal being passed. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as the knocks continued, spaced carefully apart. It felt like we were being triangulated. We didn't sleep. At dawn, we stepped outside and saw them. Footprints surrounded our tent. Huge, deep, fresh. They hadn't been there when we set up camp. Lena placed her boot beside one. Her entire foot fit inside it. The soil had compressed at least 2 inches down. Whatever stood there carried enormous weight, and the prints stopped 3 feet from where my head had been resting, as if something had stood over me in the dark. The smell was stronger now. Wet fur, rot. Something ancient. We followed the tracks. Uphill, against every rational instinct. The forest grew denser. The silence returned. Then Lena grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt. Between 2 massive pines. About 60 yards ahead, something shifted. At first it looked like shadow. Then it stepped forward. It was enormous. At least 8 feet tall, maybe more. Broad shoulders stretched beneath dark matted hair. Arms hung low, nearly reaching its knees. Its chest rose and fell slowly, powerfully. Its face, not fully animal, not fully human. Deep-set eyes locked onto us. Intelligent. Assessing the creature tilted its head slightly, as if studying something fragile. Us, Mark. Single quotes as voice trembled. Oh my God. The ground vibrated when it took a step forward. Then it made a sound, not a roar, not a growl, a low, resonant vibration that seemed to travel through my bones. A warning, and then, impossibly fast, it vanished into the trees. We stood there, unable to move. Lena checked her camera when we returned to camp. The footage glitched the moment the creature appeared. Static swallowed the image. A high-pitched distortion pierced through the speakers. The timestamp skipped 12 minutes. Ahead. 12 missing minutes. The battery drained from nearly full to dead in seconds. We remembered everything, but the camera remembered nothing. That night, the knocks returned closer. Heavy footsteps circled our camp. Branches snapped deliberately. Something exhaled just beyond the tent walls. Then came the scream. It tore through the forest, raw and powerful. It didn't sound like a predator hunting. It sounded like a declaration. This was territory. At 3:17 a.m., Mark made the worst decision of his life. I'm getting this on camera, he whispered. Before we could stop him, he unzipped the tent and stepped outside with a flashlight. The beam cut through darkness. Nothing. Then the light flickered and died. Guys. Mark's voice cracked. A heavy crunch echoed nearby. Another step, too heavy to be human. Guys. His scream shattered the silence. We rushed out. The clearing was empty. Mark was gone. No blood. No struggle. Just his camera lying in the dirt. And a massive footprint pressed directly over it, as if claiming it. The forest felt tighter now. Smaller, like the trees had shifted. Closer. Lena's breathing became uneven. We have to leave. We packed in silence, fear sharpening every movement. Then a knock sounded directly behind us, not distant, not echoing right. At the edge of the clearing, we turned slowly. It stood there closer than before. Moonlight caught the outline of its massive frame. Its chest rose slowly, calmly. Its eyes found mine again. There was no curiosity in them. Now, only certainty. It took one step forward. The ground trembled beneath our boots. Then another knock answered from deeper in the forest. Then another. Different directions, different distances, surrounding us. My stomach dropped. There wasn't just one. The trees began to shift subtly. Shadows moving between trunks. Large shapes, watching, waiting, Lena whispered. Barely audible. Ethan. We're not being hunted. Another massive silhouette emerged behind the first. Then a third shape moved to our left. They weren't charging. They weren't attacking. They were closing in. Herding the lead creature stepped forward again, close enough now that I could see scars across its chest. Its nostrils flared as it inhaled our scent, and then it did something I will never forget. Its smile, not wide, not exaggerated, but deliberate, showing understanding, showing awareness. Behind us, a branch snapped. We turned. Another towering figure stood blocking the path we came from. There was no open direction left. The forest was no longer silent. It was breathing, and we were inside its lungs. The first creature raised its arm slowly, pointed deeper into the trees, as if commanding us to move. Lena grabbed my sleeve. What does it want? I didn't answer, because deep down I already knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't territorial warning. This was organized, coordinated, intelligent. They hadn't taken Mark out of anger. They had taken him as a message, and now they wanted us to follow. The lead creature let out a low rumbling sound. The others shifted. Closer. The circle tightened. There was only one direction left open, into the darkest part of the forest. And as the first step forced itself from beneath my frozen body, the trees ahead began to move. Something even larger was coming. Something that made the others seem small, and the ground started to shake. The ground trembled beneath our feet. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't fear distorting reality. The soil physically vibrated as something enormous moved through the darkness ahead of us. The creatures surrounding us didn't react with panic or aggression. Instead, they stepped back slightly, almost respectfully. That terrified me more than anything. Whatever was approaching held authority. Lena's fingers dug into my arm. Ethan, we shouldn't go. But there was nowhere else to go. Behind us stood two towering figures, their massive frames blocking any hope of escape. To our right and left, more shapes shifted between the trees. Their eyes reflected faint moonlight, steady, aware, calculating. The one in front of us lowered its arm but didn't look away. It didn't need to. The message was clear. Move. The shaking intensified. Branches snapped like brittle bones somewhere ahead. The forest parted unnaturally as something wider than the others pushed through. Then I saw it at first. I thought it was a tree falling. But trees don't breathe. This one stepped forward slowly, and the others bowed their heads slightly, not fully, but enough to show recognition. It was massive, at least 10 feet tall, maybe more. Its shoulders were impossibly broad. Dark fur covered most of its body, but streaks of gray ran across its chest and arms. Its face was older-lined, weathered. The eyes were different from the others, colder, smatter ancient. It didn't snarl. It didn't roar. It simply stared at us, judging, measuring, and in that suffocating silence, I felt something press against my mind. Not a sound, not a voice, just pressure. As if the air itself had thickened around my skull. Lena gasped softly beside me. "Do you feel that?" I nodded without looking at her. The creature's gaze locked onto mine, and for a split second, my thoughts felt exposed. Every memory, every intention, every fear. Then the pressure eased. The giant turned slightly and began walking back into the darkness. The others immediately shifted. The path ahead cleared. We were being escorted. Not hunted, escorted. I swallowed. "Hard. We follow," I whispered. Lena stared at me like I had lost my mind, but she understood. Resistance meant death. Cooperation meant something else. So we walked. The creatures surrounded us in silence, their footsteps heavy yet controlled. None of them touched us. None of them rushed. It felt ritualistic. The forest grew stranger the deeper we went. The trees twisted unnaturally, their trunks bent in unnatural arches. Massive branches had been woven together high above us, forming structures that couldn't have occurred naturally. They had built here. After nearly 20 minutes of walking, the terrain dipped into a wide basin hidden between steep ridges. Mist clung to the ground like low smoke, and then we saw it. An entire clearing unlike anything I had imagined. Huge wooden formations stood arranged in circular patterns, not random piles, organized constructs. Interlocked branches formed walls. Massive tree trunks had been hollowed out. Symbols were carved into bark deep, deliberate markings that looked older than any human settlement in the area. This wasn't just territory, it was a settlement. There were at least a dozen of them here. Some larger, some smaller. Watching us, massive elders stepped into the center of the clearing and turned to face us again. The others formed a loose circle. My pulse hammered in my ears. "This isn't possible," I muttered. Lena's voice trembled. We were wrong. We hadn't discovered a lone cryptid. We had walked into a hidden civilization. One of the smaller creatures approached us cautiously. It circled Lena first, sniffing the air around her. Then it moved to me. Its breath was hot and damp, carrying that same musky rot, but beneath it, something else. Earth, rain, pine, pine, not. Pure decay, alive. The elder made a low sound in its throat. A deep vibration. The others responded with soft rumbles, communication. Structured, intentional. Then two of them stepped forward, carrying something between them. My heart nearly stopped. It was Mark. He was unconscious, but alive. His chest rose slowly. There were no visible injuries, just dirt smeared across his clothes. They gently placed him on the ground before us, gently. That single act shattered everything. I thought I understood. Predators don't return prey unharmed. The elder stepped closer. Close enough now that I could see scars across its face-hold wounds, healed long ago. One eye had a faint white film near the edge. It leaned down slightly toward Mark. Then it looked at me and slowly, deliberately it touched its own chest. Then it gestured toward the forest beyond the clearing. I didn't understand, but Lena did. "They're not trying to kill us," she whispered. "They're showing us something." A sudden sharp cry echoed from beyond the ridgeline. Not one of them. Different. The entire clearing shifted instantly. The creatures straightened, muscles tensed. Several moved toward the edges of the basin defensively. Another, cry echoed higher pitched, twisted. The elder's head snapped toward the sound. Then chaos erupted. Two of the creatures rushed past us uphill with impossible speed. Others began ushering smaller ones toward the wooden structures. This wasn't aggression toward us. This was fear. The elder looked at us one final time, and in its eyes, I saw something I never expected. Warning, it grabbed Mark effortlessly and placed him back into my arms. The weight nearly knocked me over. Then it made a sharp, commanding sound. One of the creatures grabbed Lena's backpack and shoved it into her hands. They were sending us away. Another scream tore through the forest closer now. Branches exploded. Somewhere above the ridge is something massive, crashed through the trees, but it didn't move like them. The rhythm was wrong, erratic, violent. The elder turned and roared a thunderous, bone-shaking sound that echoed across the mountains. And from the darkness beyond the ridge, something answered, a roar deeper, angrier, older. The ground shook violently now. Not from one creature, but two titanic forces colliding somewhere beyond our sight. Lena grabbed my arm. "Ethan, move." We ran, not guided this time, but pushed by pure instinct. Behind us, the forest erupted into war. Trees snapped like matchsticks. Heavy impacts slammed into the earth. Roars overlapped in a terrifying chorus. I glanced back once. I wish I hadn't. Through the trees, I saw a glimpse of something towering over even the elder. Its outline was wrong. Longer limbs, distorted posture. Its movements were savage, uncoordinated, but overwhelmingly powerful. It slammed one of the creatures into a tree, so hard the trunk split in half. The elder charged it without hesitation, and then we lost sight of them as the forest swallowed everything. We didn't stop. Running, not when branches tore at our clothes, not when the screams echoed, not when the ground trembled beneath each distant impact. We ran until the sounds faded into the mountains, until the silence returned. But this silence was different. Not controlled, not calculated. Empty. We collapsed near a shallow stream miles from where we had started. Mark groaned weakly in my arms. He opened his eyes slowly. "They didn't hurt me," he whispered. I stared at him. "What happened?" He swallowed. "They carried me, like I was fragile." Lena shook her head in disbelief. "Why?" Mark's face went pale. "Because something else was coming." The wind shifted suddenly, carrying a scent. Not musky, not earthy, but metallic. Rotten, wrong dot. Wrong dot from somewhere deep in the trees behind a branch snapped. Slow, deliberate dot, the heavy rhythm of the Bigfoot. Tribe dot. This was lighter, but faster. And closer than it should have been. We weren't alone anymore, and whatever had attacked them had followed us. A low, distorted growl vibrated through the darkness. Not territorial, not defensive, hungry. Lena slowly raised her flashlight and pointed it toward the sound. The beam flickered across tree trunks, across brush, across empty space, then stopped. Two glowing eyes stared back at us from just beyond the tree line. Lower, to the ground than the others had. Binned up but wider, unnaturally wide. They didn't blink, they didn't move. They simply watched, and then they began to smile. The smile was wrong. That was the first clear thought that forced its way through the paralysis. gripping my body. It wasn't wide or exaggerated. It didn't stretch unnaturally across its face. But it carried intention, awareness, a deliberate expression of something that understood, fear and enjoyed it. The eyes remained fixed on us, reflecting Lena's shaking flashlight beam. They were set wider apart than a human's, but lower than the elder creature we had seen in the basin. The shape behind them was hunched, its outline distorted by branches and shadow. Mark struggled to sit up fully. "That's not them," he whispered hoarsely. "No, it WASN, it's single quotes. T." The presence felt different, where the Bigfoot tribe had radiated intelligence and structure. This thing felt chaotic, predatory, unstable. The growl came again, low and vibrating, but uneven, almost broken. It stepped forward slightly, and the light caught more of it. Its limbs were too long, its shoulders angled awkwardly, as if they had once belonged to something else and been rearranged. Sparse patches of coarse fur clung to its body, but large. Portions of grayish, stretched skin showed beneath. Its jaw seemed too heavy for its skull, hanging just slightly open as if unhinged. And the smell, metallic, sourdough, rotten in a way that felt diseased rather than natural. Lena stepped backward slowly. "Ethan, I know." The creature tilted its head sharply to one side. The movement was abrupt, bird-like, studying us. Then it spoke, not in words, but in imitation. From its throat came a fractured echo of something we recognized instantly. A would knock, but distorted, wet. Mocking, my blood ran cold. It had heard them, learned from them. Another knock followed, mimicking the rhythm we had heard the first night. But it wasn't communication, it was bait. Mark's breathing quickened. "It's copying them." The thing took another step forward. Its knees bent backward slightly as it moved, raw in a way that made my eyes ache to look at it. Its smile widened just a fraction. Then it lunged. We scattered instinctively. The creature's speed was horrifying. It covered 10 feet in a blur, crashing through brush with reckless force. Not controlled like the others. Violent, sloppy, but devastatingly fast. I grabbed Mark under his arm and dragged him toward the stream while Lena sprinted to our right, trying to split its focus. The thing slammed into a tree where we had stood. Moments before, the trunk splintered from the impact. It turned immediately toward Lena. No hesitation. It charged Lena. I shouted. She stumbled on loose stones near the water's edge, falling hard onto her side. The flashlight spun from her hand, beamed twisting wildly across the darkness. The creature leaped, but before it could reach her, a thunderous roar split the night. Not from the creature, from behind it. The distorted thing froze mid-motion. The roar came again, deep, commanding, unmistakable. The Elder, from the darkness uphill. Massive shapes burst through the trees. 3 of the Bigfoot creatures charged down toward the stream with controlled fury. The Elder was behind them, moving faster than something that size should be capable of. The distorted creature hissed on, unnatural. Shrill sound and spun to face them. For a brief second, predator met predator. Then they collided. The impact shook the ground. One of the tribe members slammed into the twisted creature from the side, tackling it away from Lena. The 2 rolled violently through brush and rock. The distorted being fought like something feral. It bit, clawed, thrashed wildly with long limbs that bent too far at the joints. Its jaw snapped inches from one creature's throat. The elder arrived like a force of nature. It grabbed the twisted being by its upper torso and hurled it into a boulder with terrifying strength. The rock cracked on impact. The forest erupted into chaos once more. I scrambled to Lena and pulled her upright. "Are you hurt?" "Okay," she gasped, though her hands shook violently. Mark stared in disbelief at the battle unfolding before us. "They came back." "Yes, they came back for us." The twisted creature screeched and launched itself at the elder, climbing unnaturally along its body like a spider. Its elongated fingers dug into fur and flesh. It opened its jaws and possibly widened. The elder slammed it backward into a tree trunk with bone-shattering force. The sound that followed wasn't just a roar, it was rage. 2 more tribe members joined the attack, striking with coordinated precision. They didn't move randomly. They flanked. They anticipated. They had fought this thing before. The distorted creature lashed out wildly, catching one across the shoulder and tearing deep into muscle. Dark blood splattered across bark, but they didn't retreat. The elder grabbed the creature's arm, mid-swing, and twisted. There was a sickening crack. The twisted being shrieked, a sound that felt like it clawed into my skull. Then, with one final, coordinated strike, the tribe forced it backward toward the stream. The creature hesitated just for a fraction of a second, and in that hesitation, I saw fear in its eyes. The elder stepped forward slowly, breathing heavily. Blood matted parts of its fur. Its chest rose and fell with controlled intensity. The distorted being glanced at us, at me. That smile flickered again. Then it did something unexpected. It retreated, not in panic, not in defeat, but in calculation. With unnatural agility, it scrambled backward up the ridge, vanishing into the forest with eerie silence. The tribe did not chase. They stood still, watching until the darkness swallowed it completely. Silence returned once more. The elder turned slowly toward us. Even injured, it radiated authority. It stepped closer, and for a moment I feared it would change its mind about protecting us. But instead, it looked at Lena, then at Mark, then at me. There was no aggression in its gaze, only urgency. It gestured toward the opposite direction, the path, leading away from both the basin and the ridge. It wanted us gone, now. I nodded slowly. "We understand." The elder held my gaze for a long second, and in that moment, something passed between us. Not language, not exactly thought, but recognition. We were not the enemy. We were witnesses, one of the tribe. Members approached and placed something on the ground before us. It was Mark's broken camera, cracked, destroyed. But inside it, the memory card compartment had been carefully removed and set beside it. Preserved. Lena stared at it in shock. They saved it. The elder made a low sound again, softer this time. Then the tribe began moving back toward the basin without another glance. Within seconds, they were gone, leaving us alone by the stream. Mark exhaled shakily. "This isn't what people think." "It is." "No," I said quietly. "It's not." We didn't waste time. At first light, we began hiking out of the forest, sticking to lower ground and avoiding ridges. Every snapped twig made us flinch. Every shadow felt alive. But nothing followed. Not openly. By late afternoon, we reached the edge of mile marker 27, and with it dash sound, birds, blind, life. Returning, the forest beyond that invisible boundary felt normal. Again, harmless, deceptively peaceful. But I knew better. As we reached the ranger station near dusk, Harold stepped outside as if he had been waiting. One look at us and he knew. "You saw them?" It wasn't a question. "Yes," I replied. "And?" he asked quietly. I thought of the elder, of the tribe, of the distorted creature. They're not alone out there. Harold's face tightened. "You saw one of the others." The word hung heavy between us. "Others?" Lena asked. He nodded grimly. "They've been here longer than anyone knows. The tribe keeps them in the deep woods." "Contained? Contained?" Mark repeated. Harold looked toward the distant tree line. "They're not natural." A chill ran through me. "What are they?" I asked. Harold hesitated, then said something that made my stomach drop. "Experiments?" The wind picked up suddenly, rustling the trees behind the station. "Government?" Lena whispered. Harold didn't answer directly, but his silence said enough. "The tribe protects the forest," he continued, "and us. Most people disappear because they wander too close to what shouldn't exist." My mind raced. The missing hikers. The broken bodies moved miles away. Not random. Damage control. Mark looked at me slowly. "The elder, it knew." "Yes," I said. "It knew we weren't the real threat." That night, as we prepared to leave the mountains, I checked the salvaged memory card. There was one video file .corrupto glitching, but playable. The screen flickered with static at first. Then the basin, the tribe, the elder standing in the center, and in the background, deep within the tree line, multiple distorted silhouettes watching from the shadows. Not one, not two, at least 6. Waiting, observing, learning. The footage cut abruptly, and the final frame froze on something that made my blood run cold. One of the distorted figures wasn't looking at the tribe, it was looking directly at the camera. Smiling, the forest had not been defending itself from a single invader. It had been holding a line, and that line was thinning as we drove away from the Appalachian mountains. I couldn't shake one final thought. The tribe had protected us, but not out of kindness, out of necessity. Because if the others ever moved past those, religious humanity wouldn't stand a chance. And somewhere deep in those endless woods, the smiling thing was still out there, watching, waiting, learning how to knock.